Welcome to Ghosted Encounters.
Welcome back to Ghosted Encounters, where your ghost stories come to life. Today we have 2 stories, and the first was sent in by Cam. I've changed a few names for privacy, but everything else is exactly as it was shared. I used to think Ouija boards were nothing more than a game. You can buy them in toy shops, so I never believed all the stories people told about them. That changed one Friday night. There were 5 of us sitting around my friend Aaron's living room. We'd ordered pizza, the TV was playing quietly in the background, and everyone was trying to decide what to do because none of us wanted the night to end. The room was warm, comfortable, and full of laughter. Aaron disappeared for a few minutes and came back carrying an old Ouija board covered in dust. He dropped it onto the wooden coffee table and laughed. Who's brave enough? None of us really believed anything would happen, so we pushed the pizza boxes aside, dimmed the lights, and sat in a circle around the table. The only light left on was a lamp in the corner, casting long shadows across the room. We all rested 2 fingers on the planchette. Aaron smiled and asked, "Is there anyone here with us?" For several seconds, nothing happened. We laughed. Someone accused Aaron of trying to scare us. Then the planchette moved, only a little at first. I immediately accused one of my mates of pushing it. Everyone denied it. We asked another question. Again, it moved. The answers didn't make any sense. Just random letters. I remember relaxing again because I was convinced someone was messing with us. Then Aaron asked, "Who are you?" The room suddenly felt strangely quiet. The planchette began sliding across the board, much more slowly this time. The planchette stopped on the first letter. I. It slowly slid across the board. Z. Then again. I. Another pause. Z. Once more. I. Finally. Z. None of us recognized the name. Before we could ask another question, the planchette started moving wildly around the board, circling letters without spelling anything at all. The laughter stopped. Nobody said a word. The room suddenly felt colder. I could actually feel goosebumps on my arms. The curtains beside the window moved slightly, even though every window in the house was closed. Something small fell off a shelf behind us. None of us wanted to turn around to look. I remember feeling like we weren't alone anymore. Then I noticed Aaron. He'd gone completely silent. His shoulders slowly slumped forward. His head dropped until he was staring into his lap. At first I thought he was playing a joke. I laughed and nudged him. He didn't react. I called his name. Nothing. I grabbed his shoulder and shook him. His body was sitting upright, but it felt like there was nobody inside. His eyes were open, but he wasn't looking at anything. The room filled with panic. Nobody knew what to do. Emma suddenly reached under her shirt and pulled out the small gold cross she always wore around her neck. Her hands were shaking as she placed it over Aaron's head. Then she quietly began praying, "Our Father." Without even thinking, the rest of us joined in. Our voices were shaky. The room still felt freezing cold. Aaron didn't move. For what felt like forever, nothing happened. Then Aaron suddenly took one enormous gasp of air. He looked around the room completely confused. It was as if he'd just woken from a deep sleep. He asked why everyone looked so frightened. None of us knew what to say. We packed the Ouija board away immediately. Nobody wanted to touch it. The next morning, I asked Aaron if he remembered anything. He just looked at me blankly. "What are you talking about?" He had absolutely no memory of the previous night. To this day, he still doesn't believe anything happened. The rest of us know better. I've never touched a Ouija board again. And after that night, I never will. Cam, thank you for trusting me with your story. Story 2 is from Sarah. Just like Cam, it started with a Ouija board.
I was hanging out with a few friends one Friday night. Let's call them Emily, Jake, Mike, and Rachel. We'd spent most of the evening sitting around my house complaining that there was nothing to do. Mike had always been obsessed with anything paranormal. Ghosts, haunted places, Ouija boards. He loved all of it. He suddenly looked at us and said, "Why don't we take the Ouija board to the cemetery?" I honestly laughed. I'd never believed Ouija boards were real. You can buy them in toy shops, so I'd always assumed they were just another board game. Rachel wasn't laughing. She looked at Mike and said, "No chance. That's a terrible idea." She refused to touch the board, but after a bit of convincing, she agreed to come with us as long as she didn't have to take part. Looking back, she was probably the smartest one there. About 20 minutes later, we reached the cemetery. It was completely dark apart from the moonlight and a few distant streetlights outside the entrance. The air felt strangely still. Not even the trees were moving. Mike found a large old tree near the center of the cemetery and placed the Ouija board on the ground. We all sat in a circle around it. Rachel stayed standing a few meters away with her arms folded, clearly wishing she'd stayed home. The moment we placed our fingers on the planchette, the atmosphere changed. Nobody was laughing. Mike quietly asked, "Is there anybody here who wants to communicate with us?" For several long seconds, nothing happened. Then the planchette moved slowly. I immediately accused Mike of pushing it. He looked genuinely confused. I swear I'm not. The planchette continued moving across the board, spelling complete nonsense. Random letters, nothing that made any sense. I remember thinking, see, it's fake. Then it suddenly sped up. The wooden pointer shot around the board so quickly that I could barely keep my fingers on it. Everyone started shouting over each other. Emily wanted to stop. Rachel kept yelling, "End it, just stop!" Mike refused. He stared at the board and quietly said, "It needs our energy." The words sent a chill straight through me. Before anyone could answer, the planchette stopped moving, completely. At that exact moment, a freezing gust of wind tore through the cemetery. The trees around us began swaying violently. Leaves whipped through the air. The temperature dropped so suddenly that I could see my own breath. Nobody said a word. I broke the silence. "We're leaving." Mike slowly pushed the planchette to the back. He packed the board into its box, and all 5 of us started walking back toward the cemetery entrance. At first, everything seemed normal. Then I heard footsteps behind us. Crunch, crunch, crunch. They matched our pace perfectly. I turned around. There was nobody there. The others had heard them too. Nobody spoke. We simply walked faster. The footsteps did the same, so we ran. I could hear all of us breathing heavily as we sprinted between the old gravestones. The footsteps stayed right behind us, close enough that I honestly thought someone was chasing us. As we reached the cemetery gates, the footsteps stopped, instantly, like someone had simply disappeared. We all turned around at the same time. The cemetery was completely silent. Jack was staring back into the darkness. His face had gone completely pale. When I asked him what was wrong, he quietly pointed between the headstones. "I swear, I just saw someone standing over there." Mike hadn't noticed the figure. Instead, he told us that while we'd been running, someone had leaned close to his ear and whispered something.
What's Megan?
When I asked what they'd said, he simply shook his head. I couldn't understand it. None of us stayed long enough to find out. We got in our cars and drove home without saying much. I've never gone back to that cemetery. I don't know whether we contacted something that night or whether something was already there waiting for us. Either way, I'll never touch a Ouija board again.
Whether you believe these stories or not, one thing is certain. Every person who shared their experience with me said the same thing. If they could go back, they never would have played with a Ouija board. If you've experienced something you still can't explain, send your story to ghostedencounters@gmail.com. Your encounter could be featured on the next episode. Until next time, sleep well.